Okay, hello. In this video, I'm going to talk about a supply and demand, how to sketch a supply and demand graph from a supply and demand table, and then how to explain how market forces act to move the equilibrium following an adjustment in supply. So first of all, we can imagine this supply and demand schedule here. So I've got the market price going from £1 up to £7. This is a supply and demand schedule for silky sponge cakes at WCS. We see the quantity supplied rises from 40 to 50 to 60 to 70 to 80 to 90 to 100. That's the law of supply. As the price rises, the quantity supplied rises. And we can also see as the price rises, the quantity demanded falls. So as things become more expensive, people gradually want to buy less of them, which is why as the price goes up from £1 to £7, gradually the quantity demanded, the amount buyers are willing to buy drops from 90 down to 30. So the first question is, show the market in equilibrium. So first of all, we want to identify where the equilibrium is. So it's helpful, remember the equilibrium is when there's a price at which the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. And we can see in this case, the equilibrium is going to occur between 3 and 4 will be the equilibrium price, and the equilibrium quantity will be between 60 and 70. So we can see here, the equilibrium price is going to be £3.50, and the equilibrium quantity of cakes will be 65. So we'll begin by putting a graph together. We'll look carefully at the scale on the left-hand side, make sure we're going up by the same amounts. So 1, 1, 1, 1. So we're going from £1, and the same distance takes us to £2, same distance takes us to 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 8. Remember, price is on the vertical axis, quantity is on the horizontal axis. And again, we want to do the same with the horizontal axis going from 10, 20, 30. So each bar is representing a jump of 10. We're not going from 10 to 40 to 50 to 60. We're going up by 10. 20, 30. Each bar represents the same distance apart. We then plot the supply curve. So we know at £1 the quantity supplied is 40, at £2 the quantity supplied is 50, £3 the quantity supplied is 60. So we'll plot those points first of all, then we'll connect them to get the supply curve. Remember, supply slopes up to the sky. So from left to right, we've got an upward sloping supply curve. We've plotted the points in for the demand curve. At £7, the quantity demanded was 30. £6, the quantity demanded was 40. £5, it was 50, and so on. We plot the downward sloping demand curve. Remember, demand slopes down to the ground. We stick a D next to the demand curve to remind us it's a demand curve, and an S next to the supply curve to show us it's a supply curve. We find the equilibrium, which is the point at which the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. And as per the identification we made earlier, the equilibrium price is £3.50 and the equilibrium quantity is 65. We'll stick an E here to identify it as an equilibrium. We'll also write PE, which stands for price in equilibrium, is equal to £3.50, and QE, which stands for quantity equilibrium, is 65. And that's our graph there. Remember to identify price on the vertical axis and quantity in the horizontal axis. And that there's the answer to the first part of the question. Next one, if we suppose that the quantity supplied rises by 30 at every price, can we show the market in the new equilibrium? So first thing to do then is add 30 to each of the quantities supplied. So we said at every price, it's going up by 30. So at £1, the quantity supplied was 40. It's now going to be 70. At £2 it was 50, it's now going to be 80, and so on. At £6 it was 90, and it was 120. At £7 it's now gone from 100 to 130. So every single price, the quantity supplied has gone up by 30. We also want to identify the new equilibrium, and remember the equilibrium price is the price at which the quantity supplied equals the quantity demanded. And we can see here in this case, the equilibrium price is £2 because at £2, the quantity supplied is 80 and the quantity demanded is also 80. So we just then plot the new curve So at 70, at £1, the quantity demanded is now 70. Again, it's 30 to the right of the 40. At £2, it was 50, now it's 80. At £3, it was 60, now it's 90. So we plot the new supply curve, and next to the new supply curve, we'll call it S2. So we've got S1, which is shifted to the right to become S2. We've identified E1 for the first equilibrium. For the new equilibrium, we'll call that E2. So put E2 here, and we'll call the first equilibrium price PE1 and the first equilibrium quantity QE1. And the second equilibrium price in equilibrium 2, we'll call PE2. And the second equilibrium quantity we'll call QE2. So now we've got two equilibrium prices, two equilibrium quantities, and we're able to see the new graph, which will look like this. Forget this line here. It's just, we'll just do a broken line, a dash, 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 coming out to E1 and coming down to QE1, a dash, 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 coming out from PE2 down to QE2. Next question, the trickiest one. Explain how market forces would act to restore equilibrium. So we begin at £3.50 in equilibrium. What's happened then at £3.50 is that the quantity supplied is increased by 30. So the quantity demanded at £3.50 hasn't changed. Along the demand curve, the quantity demanded is still 65. But now at £3.50, the quantity supplied is 30 higher because at every single price, the quantity supplied is increased by 30. So now I think it was due to cheaper production techniques in the question. Cheaper production techniques mean that the company can produce more cakes. So whereas at £3.50, sellers were willing and able to sell 65, they can now produce 95 cakes. So at £3.50, the quantity supply is now 95. The quantity demanded, though, is still 65. So in this case, the quantity supplied at £3.50, the quantity supplied is now 95. The quantity demanded is still 65. So if the quantity supplied outstrips the quantity demanded, there's a surplus. That is also called an excess supply. Sellers are trying to sell 95 cakes, but buyers are only willing and able to buy 65 cakes at that price because the buyer's behavior hasn't changed. So sellers are going to market with 95 cakes. At the end of the day, they've only sold 65 cakes. So the question is, what can they do to try and get rid of this surplus of 30 cakes they've not sold? And within the model, there's only one thing they can do, and that is lower the price. So sellers lower the price, and when they lower the price, the quantity demanded rises along the demand curve, which is the law of demand. Prices drop, buyers become willing and able to buy more cakes. And at the same time as prices drop, sellers become willing and able to sell less cakes. So as the price drops from £3.50 down to £2, the quantity demanded rises from 65 up to 80. And at the same time, when the price drops from £3.50 down to £2, sellers who were willing to sell 95 cakes at a lower price are only willing to sell 80 cakes. So the quantity supplied has dropped along supply curve S2. And then at £2, the quantity supplied is 80, the quantity demanded is 80, and the market is back in equilibrium. So the next time they go to market, the sellers are bringing 80 cakes, the buyers are buying 80 cakes at £2, and equilibrium has been restored. So just to summarise the move, cheaper inputs caused the quantity supplied to increase by 30 every price. So the supply curve shifted to the right from S1 to S2. What was an equilibrium at £3.50 is now a surplus of 30. To try and get rid of the surplus cakes, sellers have to lower their price. As prices drop, quantity demanded rises and quantity supplied falls. And that effect continues until the price drops to £2. And at £2, the quantity demanded has risen up to 80. Quantity supplied has dropped to 80. So at £2, quantity demanded is 80, quantity supplied is 80, and the market's back in equilibrium at E2. And that's how markets will move to try and solve a surplus that can occur.